Again, my name is John Strachan. I am the Operations and Commercial Training Manager in Human Resources Shared Services for a company called Greene Tweed in suburban Philadelphia. We are a manufacturing company, and what I'm going to talk to you about today is using microlearning in change management. Anybody, if you could show me in the chat, did anybody go to Learning 2023 in Orlando this year in December? If you did, I did this very similar presentation in Orlando at Learning 2023. It was very interesting to see the increased manufacturing audience that we're getting at these conferences. So, Chris, if you could go to the next slide. You'll see that my LinkedIn profile is there. Again, I am at Greene Tweed. I joined Greene Tweed in April of 2022. I have always been an avid 7TAPS user. I've been with 7TAPS pretty much since the beginning, very early adopter to microlearning. Consider myself a microlearning champion, and I'm really excited to share with you a case study that we did just last year at one of our plants in Texas and show you how we incorporated microlearning to support this change management initiative. So we go to the next slide. So just real quick, a little bit about Greene Tweed. It's probably a company you've never heard of. It is a family-owned company. It is 160 years old. We have a little over 2,000 employees on 3 continents. We are a global manufacturer. We make high-performance thermoplastics, composite seals, and really, really strong engineered structural components. We deal in aerospace and defense, oil and gas, life sciences, semiconductor, and other key industries. And what we do is collaborate very highly with our customers to get the best of their design specs. Our tagline is basically when failure is not an option. Again, we make a lot of parts for aircraft, both in commercial and military. We do a lot of things with landing gears. We do a lot of things with navigation systems and things like that. So obviously failure is not an option in those industries. Next slide, please. So just a little, another thing, 80% of the world's commercial military aircraft use our structural components, and whether those be for ceilings, for pumps, engineered components from the very basic O-ring up to other really highly technical engineered components. We do a lot with fiber optics and electrical connectors, and we also make structural components. So our big thing with military aircraft and commercial aircraft is to make very strong components, make them much lighter for fuel savings. Next slide, please. So let's go into the case study. And again, this is something that I did at Learning 2023. So I want to put something out to you. Next slide. So in the chat, if you will, I know we're close enough to Friday, so I'm going to ask all of you, what's one fun thing you're going to do this weekend? What do you have planned? What are you going to do? Work, relax, laundry, lay floors, a lot of video game, a lot of varied activities, a lot of cooler things I'm going to do this weekend, it looks like. So why do I ask you that question? Because I want to put a what if out to you to kind of frame this whole case study for you. Now, you've all worked your week this week. It's Friday Eve. We're close enough. We're going to go into the weekend and we're going to do things. But let me give you a what if here. If you went into work on Monday and your management came to you and said, hey, we have a lot more production demands now, and we're also facing some supply chain issues. So we're going to change your schedule around for you. So now you're 8 hours a day, you're 40 hours a week. What we're going to do now is we're going to go to 12-hour shifts, and you're going to rotate on a 48-hour week and a 36-hour week. And just to make it that much better for you, instead of 52 weekends off, we're going to give you 26 weekends off. This is what happened at one of our manufacturing facilities in Texas because of the increase at the time in semiconductor. We just could not keep up with demand. So the decision was made that we were going to go to a 24/7 operation, and everybody was basically going to fall in line. So, think about how that would make you feel, and especially all of you with children or anybody that has elder care, when you have that kind of schedule, what's that going to do not only to your work life, but your personal life? So we'll talk about that a little bit. When I started at Greene Tweed 2 years ago, this was really one of my very first projects. And we were kind of brought in late on this project. So we had some challenges that we had to deal with right away when they announced that they were going to make this change. And one of them is we had to develop resources to support this change management initiative that was going on. But we also had to develop resources and support the production employees and their families. And that was a major consideration for us. Our target audience, although they're really great at what they do, they are not super computer savvy. They don't have access to computers. And when they do, the computers that we have at our manufacturing sites are in learning labs, and it's pretty far away from the production floor. So, doing something on a computer wasn't an option. So we started to talk about micro and mobile learning. Greene Tweed also has a policy about using your cell phones on the manufacturing floor. So that was an obstacle for us. And a lot of our production operators don't want to do any kind of training or micro learning on their own personal phones because they consider that work. We are not in a union environment at our sites in Texas, but we are a union environment in our site in Pennsylvania. And trying to use micro learning in Pennsylvania, people want to be paid for using their phones to even take training. So there was a lot of things that that we kind of had to deal with to get started, and we thought that we were still going to press ahead with micro learning. And so I'd like to talk to you a little bit about kind of what our solutions were for that. So we can go to the next slide, and you can, one more, please. So let's talk about the solutions. Again, we had to get ready for this change. One of the very first things we did is we partnered with a vendor named Strachan, who are very good at working with manufacturing facilities, especially in a shift environment. We developed a workshop with Strachan to support our production people. We then conducted train-the-trainer sessions, and one of the things that we really strive for was to get the message from people who they work with instead of management. So we had some value stream managers, their supervisors, and even some employees go through this train-the-trainer to talk about what the shift change was going to look like. Kind of some of the obstacles that they were going to face, but they seem to accept that message better from somebody on their own level than being dictated by management about what was going to happen. We also prepared their supervisors to kind of look for things like fatigue, emotional problems, and things like that. We have a disciplinary system for our manufacturing personnel. If you report late, if you don't show up, if you call in, you get points. One of the things that we had to do is relax that disciplinary policy for the first month that we had this new shift schedule, so that people could get acclimated to actually coming in, working 12 hours, working a 48-hour week, and then switching over to a 36-hour week, and then trying to figure out how they were going to manage their life outside of work with their families on the weekends. Some of the things that we did for them that were really cool, and I'm going to share some QR codes with you at the end of this presentation to show you some of the micro learning things that we did. But we used a lot of shareable micro learning type things. We did infographics. We did shift schedule calendars for them. We did sleep templates. We did sleep charts. We provided them with healthy recipes. Again, people in manufacturing facilities don't get that long for lunch, and they don't always make healthy choices. So we really wanted to provide them with some structure around some healthy living choices, some healthy food choices, hydration, sleep tips, and things like that. And micro learning, especially 7 Taps, was the perfect vehicle for that. We also developed employee pulse checks and feedback surveys that were administered by our HR generalists at the sites, because we wanted to make sure that we were checking in with people as they were going through this new schedule to make sure that they were okay. Again, Greene Tweed is a 160-year-old company. That can be a blessing and a curse sometimes. The blessing is that Greene Tweed really takes care of their people, really does care about their people. The curse side of Greene Tweed is that in a 160-year-old company is the fact that they're very slow to adapt to new technologies. So, we're getting away from PowerPoint. Now we're going to micro learning. That scares a lot of people. So after we kind of rolled that out for people, and we did the microbytes, some of the other things that we would do for them is to roll out key slides from the workshop that we did for them and put it on their video boards in their production areas, as well as in the cafeteria and the break rooms. Again, we have to get visual information out to people. Language is also a problem. So we have a very diverse culture at our manufacturing sites. So we wanted to do short photo-driven, GIF-driven type things that would get the points across that weren't heavily text-based. Next slide, please. So I just talked about the deployment and the execution strategy for that. And we get one more slide, Chris. So we got some key takeaways about this, and this may ring true with a lot of you. Two of the most common things that we had to overcome was, and again, being a 160-year-old company, was kind of that concept of this is the way that we've always done it, or we're just not ready for this. And when I kind of brought up the notion and the idea of rolling out microlearning to the folks at the plants, those are the two things I got. Like, we've never done that, or we're not ready for that. And it really took some doing on my team's part to convince people to say, hey, let's give this a try. And when we did roll out the microlearning to people, it was actually a tremendous response. We posted QR codes in the break room and told them, hey, we gave them little teasers like, check this QR code for healthy living tips and things like that. And people were actually more liable to use their own phones. And when they started to look at the 7 TAPS programs we provided for them, then we started to get emails. Hey, we love this. Can we get more on this? Or can we get more on these? So we ended up producing a ton of 7 TAPS programs. We're still doing it. At this point, because this plant was really focused on the semiconductor industry, there's been a large downturn in semiconductor right now. We are not on this 24/7 schedule anymore, but we may go back to it within a year or two. So these people have been prepared. There's been a lot of really great stuff. But what some of the other things that we found out is that people want to learn on their phones. They want to learn on their mobile devices. And I'm probably not telling you guys anything new about this, but in our environment, this was a very new concept for them. But they love to do it. They can also learn right where they work. They didn't have to go to a learning lab. They didn't have to go to a break room. They could replay the 7 TAPS programs. They even took them home and showed them to their families and had questions about it when they came back. So it proved to be very a very valuable resource for them. Again, engage your learners, and Jason talked about this as well. So many times in manufacturing training, we do training for them and we roll it out very quickly, only because they have productivity numbers they have to meet. So there's not a lot of time for engaging training. So when we can pump things out to them that they get engaged with, they can engage coworkers, their supervisors, their families. It's a win for everybody. And also, this really kind of took the fear out of learning for some people. I always say the folks that can't operate computers are the ones that can really make lightning bolts come out of their phones. They're very, very good with their phones. So we learned a valuable lesson here. So if we can go to the next slide, I'll show you some of, I believe it's on the next slide. Yeah. So here are some of those 7 TAPS resources we put together, and this is just a sampling. Feel free to scan those QR codes. And you can see kind of what we did for these folks. Again, connect with me on LinkedIn. Absolutely happy to talk about this. I love microlearning. Again, anything 7 TAPS related for me is fantastic. I pick up so many ideas on conferences like this, just things that I want to try, and I hope you feel the same way. So, Chris, that's the end. Happy to take any questions.
This is fantastic. And, reading some of the comments. So first of all, everyone, if we can get a big round of applause, a round of emojis, excuse me, for John, that would be fantastic. So thank you for that. And I appreciate, one of the things that you talked about that I really appreciate that you did with this. I worked at GE, I've worked in pharma, I've worked in a number of these big companies. And like you said, sometimes change is really, really hard. And it's very easy to want to just throw in the towel because so many people tell you, well, we can't do this. People won't like, they have a million reasons why they don't want to. And it's very easy to just kind of go, well, you know what? Screw it. Never mind. And just stick with the status quo. So the fact you leaned into that and said, hey, like, let's just try it. And then you let the voice of the people actually help your momentum and help you grow that and go, hey, like, people like it, they want it. And I think that was such a fantastic way to not only model what you did, but also how to actually approach that change. Because I'm sure everybody on here can relate to that environment where it's like, well, we'd really like to do this, but the culture just won't allow us. And it's easy to let that shut you down. And it obviously didn't. And you were successful with it.
Yeah, it was a leap of faith, I must admit. And it was kind of, we're going to do this now and ask for forgiveness later. Kind of a
I love
maverick
that.
in that way, but really in order to push the organization further to accept microlearning. By the way, even at our headquarters, we've been able to roll this out now and use 7-Taps and Kahoot and things like that, and various activities that we've done. It's been really, really great. So it's nice to see the change. I've been in this business a long time, and I was probably one of those people in management that one time said, yeah, we're not ready for this. I've completely changed my attitude about it, and we absolutely are and have to be ready for it.
Yeah, I love that. And what I would say with caution is the ask for forgiveness instead of permission. Use carefully. You got to use it carefully. But sometimes for those of you who are in a leadership position watching or listening to this, that is such an important thing that sometimes you got to put yourself out there. And I remember in pharma, I still remember this to this day, the time my teams wanted to try something that everybody, I knew I was going to get in trouble for it, but I'd assessed the risk and was like, we're just going to go with it. We're just going to do it. And we're going to hit the send button and we're going to push it out. And I got dragged into an executive conference room about 10 minutes later and got dressed down. But then the response from the people was, this was fantastic. And I was able to go back and go, hey, look, it wasn't so bad. And look at the change that we've enacted. And it actually turned the culture. So I think that's a great just reminder to people that, sometimes, yes, do it carefully, but it's worth it in the long run. So
yeah, well absolutely. And I mean, there was 2 ways I was going to go. It was either going to go great or, I was going to use the line, I'll show myself out, because I'm sure that's what was going to happen. But, really, I've tried to instill a philosophy at Greene Tweed to put the responsibility for learning back on the learners, which has not always been done. It's always been done on the training staff, instructional designers, training specialists. And I really feel it's important for people to take control of their own learning and ask what they need and ask for how they want it. And that's something that's been a very slow change for us, but we are making progress with that.
Love it. Love it. And to that other point, if you're going to make one of those career limiting moves or whatever and take that risk, you can do what I did and you can pack up your desk before you do it so that it's quicker to get to the car in case it goes south. Like that's, worst case scenario, you're at least ready to go. But
I was looking on my backpack there for a while. So my backpack was
you're like, packing. Am I okay? All right. Well, thank you, John. Thank you so much. Absolutely. I appreciate it. One more round, everybody, for John. And at the end, I'll bring you back up when we're chatting with everybody if you're still here. So thank you again.
Absolutely.
I'm going to move you backstage.